Little strawberry. How you doing? 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 Obligatory cat check. They're so cute. I love that they're always just napping in the background. Alright. This is the final part of my Grimm series. Well, specifically the Barbie's Princess and Fairy Tale one. Because I'm just going off the ones in this book. There's like over 200 stories in my Grimm book, so we could never be done with that one, to be honest. But I just want to read stories from that you guys are interested in. So I think I did do one video of me reading some of the stories, and I asked for you guys to tell me your faves, and I don't know if anyone ever actually did. So I'm just gonna keep doing these like themed videos and try to make them interesting. But yeah, because I do want to read a lot of them to you guys, and I talked about also doing the Hans Christian Andersen tales. I will be doing those as well. But last time we left off with Little Red Riding Hood, who is the only one of these stories that doesn't involve a princess, because she's not a princess. In my heart she is, but there's also Thumbelina, and that's a Hans Christian Andersen tale. That was one of my absolute favorites. It's so freaking cute. That one has a lonely widow longs to have a child. She visits a wise woman who gives her a magic seed to plant. The seed grows into a beautiful tulip, and at the center of it there's a little girl no bigger than her mother's thumb. I love that one. I've seen a lot of people, okay, not a lot of people, I was telling my roommate about this recently, and they compared Thumbelina to that one Studio Ghibli movie, The Secret Life of Arietta. I just watched that movie super recently with my roommate. I want to say like literally last week, and I was like, oh my god, you're right, like this is so because my roommate had never heard of Thumbelina before, and I hadn't watched Arietta before last week. We were both like, oh my god. I'm sure I could look it up and they're probably connected somehow, but I love Thumbelina. That was my childhood. I have a book. I have to find it. It's at home somewhere, but I know I have a little book on it with little cute illustrations and everything. I just have to dig it up. But anyway, love Thumbelina. That's not a Grimm's fairy tale though. I'll try to read that to you guys. When I can find the book, I can like trace the pictures and stuff for you. But the 12 Dancing Princesses is another one of my faves, and I actually have a novel I brought from home. It's like this big. It's pretty thin, but it's the 12 Dancing Princesses story. The story of princesses who mysteriously wear out their shoes every night is told all over the world. In the Brother Grimm's version, there are 12 princesses who secretly dance the night away. So I'm going to read the Brothers Grimm version for you guys right now. Sorry, I just moved my whole table. And maybe if you guys are really interested, I can like show you guys the book as well. I'm probably going to do another video where I show you guys my book collection and whatnot, and like I'll include that book in it. Or I'll just do like my books of the month and I'll include that. But yeah, so you're gonna get the Brothers Grimm version right now. That is on page 470. I'm excited because I haven't read this one. I haven't read this version, so we'll see how it compares. There we go. So this one's called The Shoes That Were Danced to Pieces. That's the Brothers Grimm title for it. There was once upon a time a king who had 12 daughters, each one more beautiful than the other. They all slept together in one chamber in which their beds stood side by side, and every night when they were in them, the king locked the door and bolted it. But in the morning when he unlocked the door, he saw that their shoes were worn out with dancing, and no one could find out how that had come to pass. Then the king caused it to be proclaimed that whosoever could discover where they danced at night should choose one of them for his wife and be king after his death, but that whosoever came forth and had not discovered it within 3 days and nights should have forfeited his life. It was not long before a king's son presented himself and offered to undertake the enterprise. He was well received, and in the evening was led into a chamber adjoining the princess's sleeping chamber. His bed was placed there, and he was to observe where they went and danced, and in order that they might do nothing secretly or go away to some other place, the door of their room was left open. But the eyelids of the prince grew heavy as lead, and he fell asleep, and when he woke in the morning, all 12 had been to the dance, for the shoes were standing there with holes in the soles. On the second and third nights, it fell out just the same, and then his head was struck off without mercy. Many others came after this and undertook the enterprise, but all forfeited their lives. Now it came to pass that a poor soldier, who had a wound and could serve no longer, found himself on the road to the town where the king lived. There he met an old woman who asked him where he was going. "I hardly know myself," answered he, and added in jest, "I had half a mind to discover where the princesses danced their shoes into holes, and thus become king." "That is not so difficult," said the old woman. "You must not drink the wine which will be brought to you at night, and must pretend to be sound asleep." With that she gave him a little cloak, and said, "If you put that on, you will be invisible, and then you can follow the 12. When the soldier had received this good advice, he went into the thing in earnest, took heart, went to the king, and announced himself as a suitor. He was as well received as the others, and royal garments were put upon him. He was conducted that evening at bedtime into the antechamber, and he was about to go to bed. The eldest came and brought him a cup of wine, but he had tied a sponge under his chin, and let the wine run into it without drinking a drop. Then he lay down, and when he had lain a while, he began to snore as if in the deepest sleep. The 12 princesses heard that and laughed, and the eldest said he too might as well have saved his life. With that they got up, opened wardrobes, presses, cupboards, and brought out pretty dresses, dressed themselves before the mirrors, sprang about, and rejoiced at the prospect of the dance. Only the youngest said, "I know not how it is you are very happy, but I feel very strange. Some misfortune is certainly about to befall us." "You are a goose who are always frightened," said the oldest. "Have you forgotten how many king's sons have already come here in vain? I have hardly any need to give that soldier a sleeping potion. In any case, the clown would not have awakened." When they were all ready, they looked carefully at the soldier, but he had closed his eyes and did not move or stir, as they felt themselves quite secure. The eldest then went to her bed and tapped it. It immediately sank into the earth, and one after the other they descended through the opening, the eldest going first. The soldier, who had watched everything, tarried no longer, put on his little cloak, and went down last with the youngest. Halfway down the steps he just trod a little on her dress. She was terrified at that, and cried, "What is that? Who's pulling my dress?" "Don't be so silly," said the eldest. "You have caught it on a nail." Then they went all the way down, and when they were at the bottom, they were standing in a wonderfully pretty avenue of trees, all the leaves of which were of silver and shone and glistened. The soldier thought, "I must carry a token away with me," and broke off a twig from one of them, on which the tree cracked with a loud report. The youngest cried out again, "Something is wrong. Did you hear the crack?" But the eldest said, "It is a gun fired for joy, because we have got rid of our prince so quickly." After that they came into an avenue where all the leaves were of gold, and lastly into a third where they were of bright diamonds. He broke off a twig from each, which made such a crack each time that the youngest started back in terror. But the eldest still maintained that they were salutes. They went on and came to a great lake wherein stood 12 little boats, and in every boat sat a handsome prince, all of whom were waiting for the 12, and each one took one of them with him, but the soldier seated himself by the youngest. Then her prince said, "I can't tell why the boat is so much heavier today. I shall have to row with all my strength if I am to get it across." "What should have caused that?" said the youngest. "But the warm weather. I feel very warm, too." On the opposite side of the lake stood a splendid, brightly lit castle, from whence resounded the joyous music of trumpets and kettle drums. They rowed over there, entered, and each prince danced with the girl he loved. But the soldier danced with them unseen, and when one of them had a cup of wine in her hand, he drank it up, so that the cup was empty. But when she carried it to her mouth, the youngest was alarmed at this, but the eldest always made her be silent. They danced there till 3 o'clock in the morning, when all the shoes were danced into holes, and they were forced to leave off. The princes rowed them back again over the lake, and this time the soldier seated himself by the eldest. On the shore they took leave of their princes and promised to return the following night. When they reached the stairs, the soldier ran on in front and lay down in his bed, and when the 12 had come up slowly and wearily, he was already snoring so loudly that they could all hear him, and they said, "So far as he is concerned, we are safe." They took off their beautiful dresses, laid them away, put the worn-out shoes under the bed, and lay down. Next morning the soldier was resolved not to speak, but to watch the wonderful goings-on, and again went with them. Everything was done just as it had been done the first time, and each time they danced until their shoes were torn to pieces, but the third time he took a cup away with him as a token. When the hour had arrived for him to give his answer, he took the 3 twigs and the cup and went to the king, but the 12 stood behind the door and listened for what he was going to say. When the king put the question, "Where have my 12 daughters danced their shoes to pieces in the night?" he answered, "In an underground castle with 12 princes," and related how it had come to pass, and brought out the tokens. The king then summoned his daughters and asked them if the soldier had told the truth, and when they saw that they were found out and that lies would be of no use, they were obliged to confess all. Thereupon the king asked which of them he would have to wife. He answered, "I am no longer young, so give me the eldest." Then the wedding was celebrated on the same day, and the kingdom was promised him after the king's death, but the princes were bewitched for as many days as they had danced nights with the 12. Interesting? I didn't really understand that ending, to be honest with you. The princes were bewitched for as many days as they had danced nights? So it's like all the princes that were in the underground. It's been so long since I read this story. I'm gonna be so honest with you. I'm really not remembering the ending. To be fair, this is a short story. If I were to read the novel to you guys, it would definitely expand on the story a lot more, which is what I'm used to, is the actual, like, whole story of it. And also, of course, the Barbie one. Love. I loved the 12 Dancing Princesses, the Barbie version. Also, it's annoying how he was just like, "I'll take the eldest." And it's funny because she was the one who was the bitchiest towards him. I almost thought he was going to go with the youngest, but I'm glad he didn't, because they were supposed to be all like a year apart, and the youngest, I know at least in the Barbie one, the youngest was like fucking like 7 or 6 or something like crazy. A child. But let's see. The next one, we'll move on to the next one, is Snow White and Rose Red. How cute are they? I know I've talked about those ones, or this story, because, you know, obviously I like that there's 2 Grimm fairy tales that have Snow White in them, but they're different characters. So these 2 sisters are named after the rose bushes which grow outside their mother's cottage. Snow White is quiet and gentle, and Rose Red is lively and imaginative. Both girls find true love and riches through their kindness to strangers, which is so cute. I love that it's a white rose and red rose is what they're named after. So this one is page 524. There was once a poor widow who lived in a lonely cottage. In front of the cottage was a garden wherein stood 2 rose trees, one of which bore white and the other red roses. She had two children who were like the 2 rose trees, and one was called Snow White and the other Rose Red. They were as good and happy, as busy and cheerful as ever 2 children in the world were. Only Snow White was more quiet and gentle than Rose Red. Rose Red liked better to run about in the meadows and fields, seeking flowers and catching butterflies, but Snow White sat at home with her mother and helped her with her housework, or read to her when there was nothing to do. The 2 children were so fond of each other that they always held each other by the hand when they went out together, and when Snow White said, "We will not leave each other," Rose Red answered, "Never so long as we live," and their mother would add, "What one has she must share with the other." They often ran about the forest alone and gathered red berries, and no beast did them any harm, but came close to them trustfully. The little hare would eat a cabbage leaf out of their hands, the deer grazed by their side, the stag leapt merrily by them, and the birds sat still upon the boughs and sang whenever they knew. No trouble found them if they had stayed too late in the forest, and night came. They laid themselves down near one another upon the moss and slept until morning came, and their mother knew this and had no distress on their account. Once, when they had spent the night in the woods and the dawn had wakened them, they saw a beautiful child in a shining white dress sitting near their bed. He got up and looked quite kindly at them, but said nothing, and went away into the forest. And when they looked around, they found that they had been sleeping quite close to a pit, and would certainly have fallen into it in the darkness if they had gone only a few paces further. And their mother told them that it must have been the angel who watches over good children. Snow White and Rose Red kept their mother's little cottage so neat that it was a pleasure to look inside it. In the summer, Rose Red took care of the house, and every morning laid a wreath of flowers by her mother's bed before she awoke, in which was a rose from each tree. In the winter, Snow White lit the fire and hung the kettle on the hob. The kettle was of copper and shone like gold, so brightly was it polished. In the evening, when the snowflakes fell, the mother said, "Go, Snow White, and bolt the door." And then they sat round the hearth, and the mother took her spectacles and read aloud of a large book. And the two girls listened as they sat and span, and close by them lay a lamb upon the floor, and behind them, upon a perch, sat a white dove with its head hidden beneath its wings. One evening, as they were thus sitting comfortably together, someone knocked at the door as if he wished to be let in. The mother said, "Quick, Rose Red, open the door. It must be a traveler who is seeking shelter." Rose Red went and pushed back the bolt, thinking it was a poor man, but it was not. It was a bear that stretched his broad black head within the door. Rose Red screamed and sprang back. The lamb bleated, the dove fluttered, and Snow White hid herself behind her mother's bed. But the bear began to speak and said, "Do not be afraid. I will do you no harm. I am half frozen and only want to warm myself a little beside you." "Poor bear," said the mother, "lie down by the fire, only take care that you do not burn your coat." Then she cried, "Snow White, Rose Red, come out. The bear will do you no harm. He means well." So they both came out, and the lamb and dove came nearer and were not afraid of him. The bear said, "Here, children, knock the snow out of my coat a little." So they brought a broom and swept the bear's hide clean, and he stretched himself by the fire and growled contentedly and comfortably. It was not long before they grew quite at home and played with their clumsy guest. They tugged his hair with their hands, put their feet upon his back, and rolled him about, or they took a hazel switch and beat him. And when he growled, they laughed, but the bear took it all in good fun. Only when they were too rough, he called out, "Children, children, let me live. Snowy White, Rosy Red, will you beat your lover dead?" When it was bedtime and the others went to bed, the mother said to the bear, "You can lie there by the hearth, and then you will be safe from the cold and the bad weather." As soon as day dawned, the two children let him out, and he trotted across the snow into the forest. From then on, the bear came every evening at the same time, laid himself down by the hearth, and let the children amuse themselves with him as much as they liked, and they got so used to him that the doors were never fastened until their black friend had arrived. When spring had come and all outside was green, the bear said one morning to Snow White, "Now I must go away and cannot come back for the whole summer." "Where are you going then, dear bear?" said Snow White. "I must go into the forest and guard my treasures from the wicked dwarves. In the winter, when the earth is frozen hard, they are obliged to stay below and cannot work their way through, but now when the sun is thawed and warmed the earth, they break through it and come out to pry and steal, and what once gets into their hands and in their caves does not easily see daylight again." Snow White was sad that he was going away, and then she unbolted the door for him, and the bear was hurrying out. He caught against the bolt, and a piece of his hairy coat was torn off, and it seemed to Snow White as if she had seen gold shining through it, but she was not sure about it. The bear ran away quickly and was soon out of sight behind the trees. A short time afterwards, the mother sent her children to the forest to get firewood. There they found a big tree which lay felled on the ground, and close by the trunk something was jumping backwards and forwards in the grass, but they could not make out what it was. When they came nearer, they saw a dwarf with an old withered face and a snow-white beard a yard long. The end of the beard was caught in a crevice of the tree, and the little fellow was jumping backwards and forwards like a dog tied to a rope and did not know what to do. He glared at the girls with his fiery red eyes and cried, "Why do you stand there? Can you not come here and help me?" "What are you doing there, little man?" said Rose Red. You stupid prying goose," answered the dwarf. "I was going to split the tree to get a little wood for cooking. The little bit of food that one of us wants gets burnt up directly with thick logs. We do not swallow so much as you coarse, greedy folk. I had just driven the wedge safely in, and everything was going as I wished, but the wretched wood was too smooth and suddenly sprang apart, and the tree closed so quickly that I could not pull out my beautiful white beard. So now it's trapped in, and I cannot get away, and the silly, sleek, milk-faced things laugh. Oh, how hateful you are!" The children tried very hard, but they could not pull the beard out. It was caught too tight. "I will run and fetch someone," said Rose Red. "You senseless goose," snarled the dwarf. "Why would you fetch someone? You are already too many for me. Can you not think of something better?" "Don't be impatient," said Snow White. "I will help you." And she pulled her scissors out of her pocket and cut off the end of the beard. As soon as the dwarf felt himself free, he laid hold of a bag which lay among the roots of the tree, and which was full of gold, and lifted it up, grumbling to himself, "Rude people, to cut off a piece of my fine beard. Bad luck to you." And then he swung the bag upon his back and went off without even looking at the children. Some time after that, Snow White and Rose Red went to catch a dish of fish. As they came near the brook, they saw something like a large grasshopper jumping towards the water as if it were going to leap in. They ran to it and found it was the dwarf. "Where are you going?" said Rose Red. "You surely don't want to go into the water." "I am not such a fool," cried the dwarf. "Don't you see that the accursed fish wants to pull me in?" The little man had been sitting there fishing, and unluckily the wind had twisted his beard within the fishing line. And just then a big fish bit, and the feeble creature had not the strength to pull it out. The fish kept the upper hand and pulled the dwarf towards him. He held on to all the reeds and rushes, but it was of little good. He was forced to follow the movements of the fish, and was in urgent danger of being dragged into the water. The girls came just in time. They held him fast and tried to free his beard from the line, but all in vain. Beard and line were entangled fast together, and nothing was left but to bring out the scissors and cut the beard, whereby a small part of it was lost. When the dwarf saw that, he screamed out, "Is that civil, you toadstool, to disfigure one's face? Was it not enough to clip off the end of the beard? Now you cut off the best part of it? I cannot let myself be seen by my people. I wish you'd been made to run the soles off your shoes." And he took out a sack of pearls which lay in the rushes, and without saying a word more, he dragged it away and disappeared behind a stone. It happened that soon afterwards the mother sent the two children to the town to buy needles and thread and laces and ribbon. The road led them across a pasture upon which huge pieces of rock lay strewn here and there. Now they noticed a large bird hovering in the air, flying slowly around and around above them. It sank lower and lower, and at last settled over a rock not far off. Directly afterwards they heard a loud, piteous cry. They ran up and saw with horror that the eagle had seized their old acquaintance the dwarf and was going to carry him off. The children, full of pity at once, took tight hold of the little man and pulled against the eagle so long that at last he let his treasure go. As soon as the dwarf had recovered from his first fright, he cried with a shrill voice, "Could you not have done it more carefully? You dragged up my brown coat so that it is all torn and full of holes, you helpless, clumsy creatures." Then he took up a sack full of precious stones and slipped away again, under the rock into his hole. The girls, who by this time were used to his thanklessness, went on their way and did their business in the town. As they crossed the pasture again on their way home, they surprised the dwarf, who had emptied out his bag of precious stones in a clean spot, and had not thought that anyone would come there so late. The evening sun shone upon the brilliant stones. They glittered and sparkled with all colors so beautifully that the children stood still and looked at them. "Why do you stand gaping there?" cried the dwarf, and his ashen-gray face became copper-red with rage. He was going on with his bad words when a loud growling was heard, and a black bear came trotting towards them out of the forest. The dwarf sprang up in flight, but he could not get to his cave, for the bear was already close. Then in the dread of his heart he cried, "Dear Mr. Bear, spare me. I'll give you all my treasures. Look, the beautiful jewels lying there. Grant me my life. What do you want with such a slender fellow as I? You will not feel me between your teeth. Come, take these two wicked girls. They are tender morsels for you, fat as young quails. For mercy's sake, eat them." The bear took no heed of his words, but gave the wicked creature a single blow with his paw, and he did not move again. The girls had run away, but the bear called to them, "Snow White and Rose Red, do not be afraid. Wait, I will come with you." Then they knew his voice and waited, and when he came up to them suddenly his bearskin fell off, and he stood there a handsome man, clothed all in gold. "I am a king's son," he said, "and I was bewitched by that wicked dwarf who had stolen my treasures. I had to run about the forest as a savage bear until I was freed by his death. Now he got his well-deserved punishment." Snow White was married to him, and Rose Red to his brother, and they divided between them the great treasure which the dwarf had gathered together in his cave. The old mother lived peacefully and happily with her children for many years. She took the 2 rose trees with her, and they stood before her window, and every year bore the most beautiful roses, white and red. Thought that one was really cute. It's crazy to me how nice they are to the dwarf, and he's just an asshole the whole time. And he just gets straight up murked by a bear at the end. As he should. I actually made really good time with these 2 stories. I didn't take forever. But that means I get to show you the myths and legends section of this book. Because none of these stories are any grim ones, because obviously they're, based off myths and whatnot. And a lot of them are from other cultures. So just a quick little, you have Aphrodite. Gorgeous. I love this one. She's the Greek goddess of love and beauty. Some myths claim that she was actually the daughter of Zeus, king of the gods. In Roman mythology, she's called Venus. Don't you know my... Sorry. I always get the Lady Gaga song in my head. Love Venus. You already know that. I ship Venus and Mars and Sailor Moon. Rainako. You get me. You get me. There's a fanfic ongoing right now in the Rainako tag, and it's like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer / like, what's another one? Oh, like First Kill, that one queer lesbian show that got canceled after like 1 season. But that's the vibe, and it's with Rei and Minako. Yeah. With Mina as a vampire slayer and Rei as a vampire. It's good. It's good. It's still ongoing, but I'm really enjoying it. I checked that tag to be like, please update, please update. Hua Mulan, of course. Mulan. Chinese legend has it that when Mulan's elderly father was called to serve in the army, she disguised herself as a man and went in his place to save his life. She fought bravely for many years without anyone realizing that she was actually a woman. And then there's the legend of the Incas. According to legend, the Inca civilization was formed when the sun sent his daughter, Mama Aclo Huaco, and his son, Manco Capac, to teach the people how to live. Manco Capac taught the men how to farm the land, while his sister taught the women how to spin and weave. Gorgeous doll. Arthur and Guinevere. Arthur was an ancient king of England, and Guinevere was his beloved queen. Their kingdom was protected by the legendary Knights of the Round Table. I love her dress. Her whole outfit definitely reminds me of Merida from Brave. Especially with like the red hair. Oh, my bangs. There's Maid Marian, was the loyal companion of Red Robin, a legendary English outlaw who robbed the rich and then gave the money to the poor. She gave up her noble position to be with the man she loved. She definitely gives like at least this doll is giving Padme vibes. I'm sure that was like the inspo for Padme. I wouldn't be surprised. African legend. Ancient African stories were usually spoken rather than written down. One famous legend from the Kikuyu tribe in Kenya told the story of a woman who accidentally married an ogre. And then the Arabian Nights. Oh, the dress is gorgeous. This famous collection of stories was narrated by Scheherazade. I never know how to say that. A brave young woman who told these tales to stop the Sultan from marrying and killing a new wife every day. Her stories lasted for 1,001 nights and featured the famous tale of Aladdin and the Magic Lamp, which of course is also... There's Jasmine, they include that one. Aladdin's life changed forever when he discovered a magic lamp containing a genie who could grant him any wish. When Aladdin fell in love with the Sultan's beautiful daughter, he wished for riches and a palace to impress the Sultan. Well, then there's the Snake Prince. An Indian princess was desperate to know her husband's secret. When he told her, he turned into a snake, and the princess had to bravely go to the Queen of Snakes to get her husband back. Which is so cool. I love that they have these. And then the last page is the romantic heroines. So you've got Cleopatra, the famous queen of Egypt. Legend has it that Julius Caesar and Mark Antony of Rome were in love with her. Unable to face being taken prisoner by the Romans, Cleopatra allowed a snake to bite her. Which honestly, Queen Shay. I was surprised everyone was in love with her. She was like smart as fuck. And then Josephine was the wife of Napoleon Bonaparte of France. They had a very stormy marriage during which they exchanged many famous love letters while Napoleon was at war. Her doll is stunning as well. These are all like real dolls that they made, by the way. There's Romeo and Juliet. Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet were one of the most famous romantic couples in the world. Their love was doomed from the start because their families were bitter enemies. They were also 14 and they knew each other for like 3 days, so... Sorry, I'm a little bit of a hater. And the last one's Rapunzel, which we will read the story for because that is a Brothers Grimm tale. She was locked in a high tower by a wicked witch, and by chance a handsome prince heard her singing one day and fell in love with her. The witch tried to keep the couple apart, but their love was too strong, and eventually they were married. Happy ending. Gorgeous. I wish I had the sticker for that one because that one's really pretty. Also, the Princess and the Pea one is gorgeous. Swan Lake. I think honestly it's just some of the prettiest ones that are missing. I think my cousin just really liked those. This was my cousin's book. You can see she wrote her name in the corner. So cute. But she's like way older than me, by the way. She's like 26 now, 27, something like that. Yeah. But obviously she had this book like before I did. I would have been really, really young when she had this. I don't know if this has a copyright date on it. Oh, I just realized it says collect all the ultimate Barbie sticker titles. Fun with sports, international dolls, fashion dolls, hobbies, and weddings. Wedding sounds really cute. I would love to see all the wedding dolls that they made. Where's the copyright date on this? It should say year 2003. I was born 2004, so this is a year older than me. So yeah. And I would have got that book when I was a little older. Like probably like 6 or 7, maybe 8. So she had it for a while before she gave it to me. Okay. Now we move on to Rapunzel, now that we've gone through the rest of the book, except for the ones that I'm going to do with the Hans Christian Andersen tales. I'll go back over those ones when we do that. But these are all the Grimm ones that I found. This last one is going to be page 44 for Rapunzel. So all the way back to the beginning, basically. There we go. There were once a man and a woman who had long in vain wished for a child. At length the woman hoped that God was about to grant her desire. These people had a little window at the back of their house from which a splendid garden could be seen, which was full of the most beautiful flowers and herbs. It was, however, surrounded by a high wall, and no one dared to go into it because it belonged to an enchantress named Dame Gothel, who had great power and was dreaded by all the world. One day the woman who was standing by this window and looking down into the garden, when she saw a bed which was planted with the most beautiful rampion Rapunzel, and it looked so fresh and green that she longed for it and had the greatest desire to eat some. This desire increased every day, and as she knew that she could not get any of it, she quite pined away and looked pale and miserable. Then her husband was alarmed and asked, "What ails you, dear wife?" "Ah," she replied, "if I can't get some of the rampion which is in the garden behind our house, I shall die." The man who loved her thought, "Sooner than let your wife die, bring her some of the rampion herself, let it cost you what it will." In the twilight of the evening, he clambered down over the wall into the garden of the enchantress, hastily clutched a handful of rampion and took it to his wife. She at once made herself a salad of it and ate it with much delight. She, however, liked it so very much, that the next day she longed for it 3 times as much as before. If he was to have any rest, her husband must once more descend into the garden. In the gloom of evening, therefore, he let himself down again, but when he had clambered down the wall, he was terribly afraid, for he saw the enchantress standing before him. "How can you dare," said she with an angry look, "to descend into my garden and steal my rampion like a thief? You shall suffer for it." "Ah," answered he, "let mercy take the place of justice. I only made up my mind to do it out of necessity. My wife saw your rampion from the window and felt such longing for it that she would have died if she had not got some to eat." And the enchantress allowed her anger to be softened and said to him, "If the case be as you say, I will allow you to take away with you as much rampion as you will. Only I make one condition. You must give me the child which your wife will bring into this world. It shall be well treated, and I will care for it like a mother." The man, in his great terror, consented to everything, and when the woman gave birth, the enchantress appeared at once, gave the child the name of Rapunzel, and took it away with her. Rapunzel grew into the most beautiful child beneath the sun. When she was 12 years old, the enchantress shut her into a tower, which lay in a forest, and had neither stairs nor door, but quite at the top was a little window. When the enchantress wanted to go in, she placed herself beneath it, and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair to me." Rapunzel had magnificent long hair, fine as spun gold, and when she heard the voice of the enchantress, she unfastened her braided tresses, wound them round one of the hooks of the window above, and then the hair fell 20 ells down, and the enchantress climbed up to it. After a year or two, it came to pass that the king's son rode through the forest and went by the tower. Then he heard a song which was so charming that he stood still and listened. This was Rapunzel. who in her solitude passed her time in letting her sweet voice resound. The king's son wanted to climb up to her and looked for the door of the tower, but none was to be found. He rode home, but the singing had so deeply touched his heart that every day he went out into the forest and listened to it. Once, when he was thus standing behind a tree, he saw that an enchantress came there, and he heard how she cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Then Rapunzel let down the braids of her hair, and the enchantress climbed up to her. "If that is the ladder by which one mounts, I will at once try my fortune," said he, and the next day, when it began to grow dark, he went to the tower and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Immediately the hair fell down, and the king's son climbed up. At first Rapunzel was terribly frightened when a man such as her eyes had never yet beheld came to her. But the king's son began to talk to her quite like a friend, and told her that his heart had been so stirred that it had let him have no rest, and he had been forced to see her. Then Rapunzel lost her fear, and when he asked her if she would take him for her husband, and she saw that he was young and handsome, she thought, "He will love me more than old Dame Gothel does," and she said yes, and laid her hand in his. She said, "I will willingly go away with you, but I do not know how to get down. Bring with you a skein of silk every time that you come, and I will weave a ladder with it. And when that is ready, I will descend, and you will take me on your horse." They agreed that until that time he should come to her every evening, for the old woman came by day. The enchantress remarked nothing of this until once Rapunzel said to her, "Tell me, Dame Gothel, how it happens that you are so much heavier for me to draw up than the young king's son. He is with me in hardly a minute." She said, "Why are you fat?" Girl. That hurt my feelings. Why would you say that? She said, "You're heavier than a man." Like, you're supposed to be keeping it a secret. She's dumb as hell. She's a child still. How long has she been in this tower? Because I just know that she got locked up at 12. How old is she now? "Ah, you wicked child," cried the enchantress. "What do I hear you say? I thought I'd separated you from all the world, and yet you have deceived me." In her anger, she clutched Rapunzel's beautiful tresses, wrapped them twice round her left hand, seized a pair of scissors with the right, and snip, snip, they were cut off, and the lovely braids lay on the ground. And she was so pitiless that she took poor Rapunzel into a desert where she had to live in great grief and misery. On the same day that she cast out Rapunzel, the enchantress fastened the braids of her hair, which she kept onto the hook of the window. And in the evening, when the king's son came and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," she let the hair down. The king's son ascended, but he did not find his dearest Rapunzel above, but the enchantress, who gazed at him with wicked and venomous looks. "Aha!" she cried mockingly, "you would fetch your dearest, but the beautiful bird sits no longer singing in the nest. The cat has got it, and will scratch out your eyes as well. Rapunzel is lost to you, will never see her more." Ugh. Can't speak. You'll never see her more. The king's son was beside himself with pain, and in his despair he leapt down from the tower. He escaped with his life, but the thorns into which he fell pierced his eyes. Then he wandered quite blind about the forest, ate nothing but roots and berries, and did nothing but lament and weep over the loss of his dearest wife. Thus he roamed about in misery for some years, and at length came to the desert where Rapunzel, with the twins to which she had given birth, a boy and a girl, lived in wretchedness. He heard a voice, and it seemed so familiar to them that he went towards it. And when he approached, Rapunzel knew him and embraced him and wept. Two of her tears wetted his eyes, and they grew clear again, and he could see with them as before. He led her to his kingdom, where he was joyfully received, and they lived for a long time afterwards, happy and contented. So much happened in the end of that. Oh my god, I forgot that one was kind of brutal. Like, damn. They really didn't do anything. The enchantress was just a bitch. Rapunzel made one comment. So she lied to the parents when she was like, "I'll take care of the daughter." Like, you locked her in a tower. And then, like, threw her in the middle of a desert when she pissed you off. Like, okay. Bitch. Like, anyway. Mother Gothel sucks. We been knew that. I haven't seen the... Oh, what is it? They made a show after Tangled with Rapunzel. Was it just called Tangled, the series? I think it was. But I just know that there's also a Yuri ship in that show. Like, a fan one. Between Rapunzel and Cassandra, I think her name was. And she's apparently Mother Gothel's bio daughter that she, like, abandoned for Rapunzel. Like, holy shit. Talk about a backstory. And they're like really cute. They're like really good friends. They're really good friends. But I know, like, in Tangled, I definitely did think that Rapunzel and Flynn Rider were cute and everything. But listen, I'm always gonna like the gay shit better. Sorry. Not sorry. Speaking of childhood sapphic ships, oh my god. Tinkerbell and Vidya. I was just looking at the Tinkerbell movies again, and I was like, yeah, I forgot that was my OG, like, enemies to lovers dynamic. Like, they're so cute. I also had the Fairy Hollows books. Like, they had a little series, and they would do one for each character, and I believe I had one on Vidya. I remember having one for Fawn. Oh, I know I had one for Becky. I had one for Silver Mist. I had a couple. I had like 4 or 5. I just don't remember all of them. But I loved those books. And I know there's more. I honestly want to collect more of them because I only had like 5. And I feel like there was at least like 12. Those were so good. I have those at home too. I need to like dig them out. I also had the manga. There's a Tinkerbell manga and it has Tinkerbell and Vidya on the front. If you look it up, you'll know which one I'm talking about. It was that one brand, like Pop, like with the red logo. A couple of my mangas were from that brand. My Tokyo Mew Mew ones. I have my little Peach Fuzz novel was. I also have a couple Legend of Zelda ones as well, I believe. But yeah. Babbling aside, I love Yuri. I need that on a shirt, honestly. I'm reading Yuri fanfics on AO3 every day, all day, bro. For like every media. I got 3,000 bookmarks on that bitch. But yeah, I'm gonna do some more book related videos. This is a lot of fun. I definitely want to start doing more book videos, and I want to do book collections, talking about my favorite books. I've been like checking out more books from the library recently, and I've been making a list of some more to check out. And yeah, I just want to kind of start. I want to start getting into reading some more fiction because I'm usually big on nonfiction. Like 3/4 of my books are nonfiction, I feel like. So I want to get into more fiction books besides just like my horror and gothic literature stuff, which is always my favorite. If there's a gothic element, I'm gonna love it. But yeah, if you guys have any recommendations, let me know. And yeah, I mean, I feel like you guys kind of know my taste. Love the sapphics, love horror, love gothic. I like kind of more of a classical vibe. I'm not as into modern stuff, but I'm open to it. I like witchy stuff, vampire stuff, sirens, fairies, like anything of that sort I think is pretty cool. But yeah, I would say start by recommending me not series, because I don't know if I could get into something with like 5 books in the series. I think I'd lose my mind, I'm gonna be honest. It's been so long since I read like a proper series of books. I was never into like Percy Jackson and whatnot. I don't know, I wasn't as into the fantasy genre. I also just wasn't as into books with male leads, to be so fair. I always prefer a female lead. I did like, it was Maybird, The Happily Ever After. Those books are really interesting to me, if you know which one I'm talking about. I don't think I actually read all the books in that series. I feel like I only read the first 2. Let me know if you know which ones I'm talking about. I read that in like 2nd grade. We read them like in school. I remember being like kind of a little traumatized because there were zombies and stuff, and I did not fuck with zombies at that age. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Oh, Jasper just got up. Hi, baby. Let's have him say hi really quick. Come here. Come here. Ooh, with his little collar. See ya. hi, baby. Say hi. He's my Jazzy Boo. He says hello. And I hope you guys have a good night. If you're still awake during this part, I hope these, reading the Grimm's fairy tales is relaxing and, like, helps you sleep. Oh, my other baby's adjusting. And yeah.